host live. Okay, we are live. Thanks.
I'm gonna say get it.
So I'm going to introduce CEO in the Making
Okay, but
podcast.
my thing says get it, so okay. Now I see you. Okay.
You're live. They see you.
All right. Okay.
We all see you. So
All right.
yes, we officially have the CEO in the Making podcast right now. And we are officially here. I am your host. I am Nkese, the owner of Faith Build Coaching, and I am here interviewing a very special individual who has been healed. His memory was returned from a syndrome he used to have, and also he was once an atheist and now believes in Jesus. In his book, he depicts all of this, shares all of this in A Man Like You and Me. The author's name is Paul Joel. So this is right next to me, Paul Joel on the right hand side of me on Facebook, left hand side of me while I'm looking on the mirror image. So you can introduce yourself, Paul. You can just say hi to the people.
Okay. I'm Paul Joel. I'm the author of this novel, A Man Like You and Me, a supernatural adventure story, and it's basically a true story. I never believed in God, because mainly because of what happened to my parents during World War II. My parents were Polish Jews, and it was awful. My mother is only 14 years older than me. She just passed away last year. And she was 4 years old when the Nazis came into her home. Okay. And for some reason, she was hiding someplace where she could see and hear everything, but the Nazis didn't see her. And she was living in a very large house because her parents were there. She had a brother. She had three sisters who were much older than she was, and each of them had three or four kids, and their husbands were living there also. And the Nazis came in and they tied up everyone, and then they proceeded to kill the children. And then they raped the women and slit their throats. Then they killed the husbands, and finally they killed her parents. So and she was 4 years old. So she ran out of there and lived on the street for a couple of weeks eating garbage until she was taken in by this couple, a Ukrainian couple, who had no children. And she was smart enough to hide the fact that she was Jewish because they hated Jews. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And my father was much older than she was. Okay. He was married and had an infant son, and he was drafted. He was in the Polish army. This is his picture. Okay.
Oh, wow.
All right. And he kept this picture because he came home one weekend to find out that his wife and infant son were murdered. So he deserted, and he deserted the army, and he ran to Russia, where he slept several different winters in the snow, no shelter, sleeping in the snow. He had to have a great immune system to survive, and I had that. I inherited that.
Wow. Yeah, I remember you told me stories about your great immune system. I remember.
So that the tragedy of my life is that my mother took me and divorced my father when I was 4. And then I grew up in Brooklyn, and she married somebody else who was very nice, but he wasn't my father. And my father still believed in God, okay, despite all the terrible things.
Wow, that's so interesting.
It would have been like a great experience to have that, okay. My mother and my stepfather didn't believe in God, and to make matters worse, before they were divorced, I was 3. And you're supposed to be able to say 2 words with meaning by the age of 1, usually some form of mama or dad. But I'm 3 and I wasn't saying any words. I didn't have a pediatrician because I never got sick. Okay? So a neighbor said to my mother, hey, maybe he needs to see a pediatrician. So I'm 3, and of course I remember this as if it was yesterday with this great memory. I was seen by a female pediatrician who referred me to a male pediatric neurologist. And my parents were very worried that I was retarded. And he examined me, and then he basically said, look, he's not retarded. He's aware of his environment. This is a direct quote from 72 years ago. He's aware of his environment. He'll learn to talk. He's just slow. He's very slow. What he failed to ask is anyone speaking English to this kid? Like, how am I going to learn to speak English if they're speaking Polish or Russian to each other, and there's no TV set or radio, so how am I going to learn English? So I was kind of labeled as being dumb. Then to make matters worse, because they worked multiple jobs, they put me in this torture chamber called yeshiva, which at the time was for Jewish boys. Okay. Now they have girls too. You get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. In the morning, you learn how to read Hebrew, write Hebrew. You learn about the Old Testament, the history of the Jewish people. There's a break for lunch, and then somebody comes in and teaches you what you learned in public school: reading, writing, arithmetic. So you're there from 8 in the morning until 5.
Okay.
And,
So I
and
wanted to just let you finish your thought there,
okay,
but
and I'm the dumbest kid in class. Okay,
oh, but
they never said
we're
that.
gonna jump right back into that, Paul, because that's really good. We're gonna jump into that, but I want to get right back to before. I was just doing a little bit of sharing on my other page. I don't know what is going on with that page, but it's okay. But yes, I love that. So you guys who if you're listening, you're getting a background as to what caused him, to be an atheist at that time, the traumatic story of his what his mother went through. It turned him off of Christ. Like I
You
don't
did the same thing with my
anything to
father.
do,
My father had a
right?
terrible time too.
And yeah, and his father had a really rough time too as a Polish soldier as well because the pressure of the Nazis. And I think that it's an amazing story because he did come to Christ. So eventually he does. Now he talks about in the story that he was adopted by no his mother was adopted by Ukrainian parents, and she didn't reveal she was a Jew because they didn't actually like Jews. So, it was actually wisdom on her part to not share that so that she could live. And then she ended up breaking up with his biological father. And now he ends up having a stepfather in this, and you end up going to the States at some point, right?
Again, he didn't believe in God either. Okay, both my mother and my stepfather didn't believe in God. Okay, and again, I grew up thinking I was an idiot until at the
Mhm.
end of third grade, Mr. Frank Tamler, the
Well, no,
person.
I was just double checking. Were you in the States at this time?
Yeah. No,
Okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
born in New Jersey and moved
That's
to
why I
Brooklyn.
wanted to double check. Okay, I'm almost done. I'm almost done. So I was gonna say, yeah, so basically he was in the States at this point. So in order for her to get passage into the States, she actually was married before he to his biological father before he met his stepfather, right? So he as his father was a believer and he was like, I would have loved to have known that, to have like gotten to experience that. So, but he did have a tough childhood, is what he was describing, and his education wasn't super great until he realized that, they were speaking Polish at home, so he couldn't speak English because of that very reason, and that he will speak. They just said he was slow. So, in this time, in this process, he's learning himself. Things are happening. He's experiencing things that are pretty intense, and he's not around his dad. He's never really had time really with his dad like that, and now he's learning to kind of become a citizen. He's learning, he's different things, and then eventually he will share at a later time about his education and how he did come to be a brilliant person that he is now. And just be able to, be able to have the education he has, which not many people have that education that he has. So it's a really amazing education coming from the doctor saying he's slow to now he's doing really great for himself. So, and he wrote this book. So, and of course, we're going to talk about the supernatural adventure. I know y'all are excited about that. I'm excited about the supernatural adventure. So I wanted to talk a brush up on a part of the book. We're going to fast forward a little bit, just a little bit, okay? And then we'll come back to his backstory because I know you're like, who is Paul Joel? I want to know more. Okay, I'm with you. Okay. So being an atheist in that time frame, I asked the question to even people who who had grew up their whole lives believing in God, but never surrendered to God, because you can do that too. You can be a church kid or a pastor's kid and not even love God, right? That happens too. So I wanted to ask you, had anyone tried to talk to you about God before you had that moment in the book? If y'all read the book, A Man Like You and Me, he goes to Tare's church, and that's what happened. But I'd rather him share that part. But I want to ask you this: has anyone tried to ask you to come to Christ beforehand, before
Well,
that?
I grew up Jewish and I went to yeshiva and I had a bar mitzvah.
Oh, okay. So they did talk about Christ a lot.
They weren't talking about Christ, but they were certainly talking about God.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Judaism is different. Okay. Yeah. So they were talking about God. So did anyone in your classroom say, "Hey, Paul, do you want to come to church with us? Do you want to go to Bible study?"
No, that all started when I met my wife.
Oh, okay, so she's
My
the
wife,
evangelist.
my wife is a Catholic. She in the book she doesn't believe in God, but in real life I didn't believe in God, and she's the one who did. She graduated from Catholic high. She always goes to mass every Sunday. She goes to mass every holy day, and she's a believer. She's the
Yeah.
real deal.
So she and I think you had an interesting story about y'all's marriage a little bit because I know that she was
Well,
worried about you not being a believer and
again,
y'all were
again,
getting hitched.
yeah, again, suddenly, uh, I was straightened out by this teacher in third grade. Okay, he basically changed my life. Okay, I'm getting D's and everything. I'm the dumbest kid in class, and I don't get home until around 6. Okay, and suddenly he says he needs to talk to me after class, and he says, "Look, I don't know what's going on with you, but when I call you in class, you seem to have some idea what's happening. When you take these tests, you're the worst student I've ever had in my entire teaching career. I don't study for the test." So I told him the story of when I was dumb when I was 3. And I'm in third grade, whatever the heck, yeah, the end of third grade. And I said, look, I don't get home till 6. I have to grab something to eat. I've got heap of homework to do. Why should I waste my time studying? I'm dumb. And then about 10 days later, he announced that there's a test in class. And in a loud voice looking at me, he says, I don't want to hear about your schedule, okay? There's a test tomorrow. Study for the test. So I studied the test and got an A. We get home new. And I started
Wow.
getting A's in everything, okay? And the other thing is, all these teachers in yeshiva had dark hair like I have. And when they get the answer wrong, I get smacked over the hand with a ruler. And so I got beaten up all the time. And then I heard about this thing, now that I was getting A's, I heard about public school where you take this test in 6th grade. If you do really well, you skip 8th grade, go from 7th to 9th. And I wanted a shot at that. I mean, having one less year of school was like winning the lottery. Plus, public
Yeah.
school is 9 to 3, it's not 8 to 5. So I get
And
into,
not to glaze over what you said because that is a really cool thing, Paul. And I was talking about y'all getting hitched to be honest, but
I'm getting it. I'm
you
getting it.
you yeah,
I'm
and
getting
I hear you on that because um I want to make sure that the listeners are with us here because one of the things I wanted to touch on is when you shared that they said that you were slow. This is you explaining what happened to where you started getting A's in school, right?
right.
And how you were able to, how that teacher changed your life in
You
this
do.
time, just so that I know when people are following me. Because me, when I tell stories, I will be all over the place. Okay, if I'm honest, I will be all over the place, and
I'm
I'll be
trying
like,
to do this chronologically so I don't miss.
yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. So that is great. And I think that when the teacher said that to you, when he said study, that wasn't something that all the other teachers did, right? They
Well,
didn't.
here's one last point. Okay, so I eventually get to public school, and again, I have a teacher with dark hair who embarrasses the hell out of me. She can't hit me in public school, but she hated all the boys and loved the girls. And when I get the answer wrong, I'm in 5th grade. Okay, so I'm 10. She say, listen, you have to stop thinking with your penis and start using your brain for a change. And I'm like mortified. I'm 10 years old. The teacher's talking about my penis. Okay. So finally, I get into this 5th grade class. Okay, 6th grade class, okay? And I have a blonde teacher for the first time, Miss Hammer. And for the first time, nobody's embarrassing me. Nobody is humiliating me. Nobody's hitting me, okay?
And
And I
that
took the
teacher
test.
should not have said that. That is super
Right,
inappropriate.
right,
And I
right,
was there for the podcast. We usually don't talk like that on my podcast,
right. But the
being
point is,
honest.
well, I'm in the sixth
So
grade class with the blonde for the first time, blonde teacher, Miss Hammer. And suddenly I take a test for SP and I make it, and nobody's bothering me. And in the back of my head, I think I'm pre-programmed to think blonde is wholesome, blonde is good.
mhm.
Okay. So you fast forward, I'm now an intern and resident at Kings County Hospital, Downstate Medical Center, Brooklyn, New York. And there's this genius, Dr. Howard Lyons, in charge of pulmonary lung disease. And he had a couple of rules. The first rule is if you know the patient, you don't need the chart. So you'd be up all night and you have 3 or 4 admissions. Then at morning report, he would take the charts and you're expected to present. And none of the other doctors could do it. They cheat and say the labs are normal except for this, and this. But
But
I
what
gave,
part of the story are we in, Paul? Just so we can make sure.
yeah, I'm an intern resident at Kings County. I have this great memory. Okay. And
Oh, so you said you're
because
a resident at what school?
at, at Kings County Hospital, Downstate Medical Center, Brooklyn, New York.
So you made you so you graduated from not only
Medical school, right,
high
right.
school, but you also graduated from college,
College, right.
and this is your master's, am I right?
No, this is I went to medical school for four
Oh, well,
years.
this is medical school. Okay, that's what I mean. Like, okay,
So now after
you're
that,
in medical school, and I
right.
want to talk about that because I think
So
that's a really great piece
so
for
so
what you're doing.
so
Um,
after this, okay, you decide if you want to be an intern or resident or in a certain area. And I picked uh, internal medicine because I couldn't be an orthopedist anymore. Why? Um, I had tried out to play football, professional football, having never put on a uniform, okay, when I graduated from college, okay? And I was in the Bridgeport Jets training camp, which was the New York Jets
mhm,
farm team, and hoping that I'd make the team. And then if somebody got hurt on the Jets, I get picked because we had the same playbook. And so, unfortunately, my knee started giving out, and I got cut. And the head coach and the offensive coordinator said, "Hey, get your knee fixed. You would have made this team." So
mhm,
I start medical school, and then the summer between my first and second year of medical school, I get the knee surgery done, thinking I'm going to play again. And I wake up and I'm complaining that the cast is too tight. And the orthopedist says, no, it's got to be snug, it's fine. And then about 10 hours later, in the middle of the night, an orthopedic resident saws it open, and now my foot's paralyzed. That's the end of football. It's the end of being an orthopedic surgeon. Okay.
okay.
And to top it all off, I'm on opiates for my second year of medical school. Okay.
Yeah, and let me just chime in here. Let me just okay. So what I was gonna say is that because we are fast forwarding, okay, but since we're going in chronological order, because that's what's comfortable for you, I want to make sure I respect that. But again, so we want to talk about highlights of your life, okay? Because we got listeners, okay? They're in this conversation too. So I want to really brush on the fact that you went from having serious, issues in school, being able to pass tests, do well, and all of now this teacher changed your life, and you were able to actually get an A in your first test. And from there, not only did you progress in school, you took a test to be able to skip certain grades. I don't know how many grades you skipped, but
Just one.
huh?
I skipped eighth grade, just one.
Just one. Okay, so you skipped eighth grade, you got to ninth grade, freshman, and then from there, not only did you graduate high school, and we want to celebrate that because even though God wasn't in your life, all of this is a miracle to me, and I feel like it's an amazing way for Him to get to you to where you would eventually meet Him, because I feel like God's orchestrating everything anyway. So I always say that because I know my life is like that because I was a late bloomer. I came to Christ at 21. So I was more of a pastor's kid in that sense, where I was going to church and doing things, but I was not committed to Christ. I had no relationship with Him. So when you say that you came from, graduating high school to graduating college to going to medical school and interning, because interning means you're about to work as a
Yeah, I'm
doctor,
working. I'm working 7 days a week. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you are now. I'm just saying, like, at that point in time, you made it past a lot of very intense tests, very hard to pass tests, and you went through a very amazing education. And I want to congratulate that with you because I think it's an amazing feat. I mean, you're coming from that place, you have this hard childhood, and you make something out of it. And not many people can say that. Some people, they have those same issues that you had, Paul. I don't know my father. I was abused as a kid, different things, and they don't do anything with their lives, but you're doing something with your life. And I think that's an amazing thing to talk about in your story because, there's listeners right now with the same past you had, Paul, the same issues. Maybe they have connections to the Holocaust. Maybe they have parents that were survivors of it or family members that didn't survive it. And they feel passionate about, man, why did God let that happen? Different things like that, but you came to Christ and you wondered also, even in your life, how my father kept his faith, how he kept his faith, and you never got that answer because, he wasn't in your life. So I think that that's a super important note to Prince. So if you can touch base on that in your story, if you can share with us, as the listeners, like how did it feel to graduate after all those issues with your education? And then also explain what it was like for you to um, finally come to that place where you knew Christ. I mean, your wife, you meet your wife first before you come to Christ, obviously, but so she's a
Let me
part
tell
of
you
that.
this. Let me tell you the story
But
of
I want to make sure that you explain a
how I
little
met
bit of
her.
how you feel about.
Okay, so
Can you do that?
I'm an intern resident at Kings County Hospital, Brooklyn, New York, and there's this genius, Dr. Harold Lyons, in charge of pulmonary lung disease. Okay, and again, he had a couple of mottos. One of his mottos is, "You know the patient, you don't need the chart." And he would take the chart, and I was the only one who could memorize everything on these charts. He'd be up all night, you have 3 or 4 admissions. The next day, he'd take the chart and he'd present. And the other doctors would kind of cheat and say, "Well, the labs are normal except for this, and this," but I gave him everything. Because
Right.
of his letter of reference, okay, I got to do a pulmonary fellowship at Mass General at Harvard.
That's
So it's my
great.
right. It's one
Harvard
of the
is
most
pretty
prestigious.
great. Don't y'all see?
Right.
Harvard.
Okay.
Oh,
So it's my first day on the wards there. Okay, and there's
okay.
8 patients on the pulmonary service throughout the hospital. So I get there 2 hours beforehand, thinking I'm supposed to memorize this. I mean, they expect me to do this in Brooklyn and downstate. This is Harvard and Mass General. So I do that. I get there 2 hours before. I memorize everything on his 8 charts, which is an amazing memory. Okay, it's not a photographic memory. It's pretty close. Then I meet the attending, Dr. Hales, and I walk over to the chart rack and I hand him the chart. And he looks at me like I'm crazy and says, "Look, I don't know if you know what's going on here, but I'm the attending. You're supposed to be presenting the case to me, not the other way around." And I said to him,
Mhm.
"Look, I told him what Dr. Lyons said. He knew Dr. Lyons. And I said, look, this will save you time. You can go through the chart while I present and then write your note now. You don't have to come back and write notes and, can save a step here." So we do that. And eventually we get to the ICU. And I had been there about an hour or so beforehand, but there's a different nurse, the shift changed since then. So Dr. Hales is on my right. I'm looking straight ahead. He's got the chart. It's a complicated patient. Patient's on a ventilator with tubes coming out of everywhere. Okay. It's a lot to
Mhm.
memorize. Okay. Every hour there's ventilator settings and vital signs that are reported.
Right.
I memorized this all. So as I'm doing this, I see the back of this nurse's head and it's blonde hair. Like again, I've already been
Mhm.
pre-treated to
But
think that maybe it's also
are you answering my question, Paul? Because we just talked about it. We just talked about it. So what I said was, I said, how did it feel? Just you just have to answer this one question. You can get right back in your story, I promise.
okay.
But just answer me one question, okay? How
Yeah.
did it feel after having educational issues to graduate college and then graduate and get into your internship as a medical student? How did that feel? Emotion. Give me emotion.
Yeah, I didn't think it was anything special, to tell you the truth. Okay, I
You
never
did
thought
it?
that, I didn't. I never thought the memory was anything special. I graduated from this huge high school, Tilden High School in Brooklyn, New York. The graduating class was 1,600. I graduated number 16 out of 1,600. Okay, and then I went to
Pretty
Brooklyn
good.
College. And then I went to Brooklyn College, and I wasn't really interested in anything. I was interested in lifting weights and playing football. So then I got into medical school, and
So you just got
I
into
didn't, I
medical
didn't,
school. You
I
didn't
didn't.
have to take some hard test to get into medical school.
Yeah, you have to take tests to get into medical school. Of course, there's a medical school admission
So it
test.
wasn't a hard test for you, is what you're saying.
No, I did 80th percentile of the people who took that test.
So you did study hard and it was hard.
Yeah, but the point is, that's what you do. You took you have to take these pre-med courses, 2 years of chemistry and physiology and everything else. That's what the test is on. And yeah, I did well. Okay, I mean,
Yeah, but you did
no,
really well. You know, Paul, you got to give yourself credit. That's what it is. You don't give yourself enough credit because you're like, it's not a big deal. But if you're in this show, okay, and you know me, I am a faithful coach. So I'm going to inspire no matter what. But I believe that you are inspiration and you need to believe that too because this is an inspiring story too. Even before you knew the Lord, you're doing these amazing things that really a lot of people are going to be inspired by. Like, what if someone wants to be a doctor? You know, what if someone else wants to not let their education issues bother them so much to where they get to a place where they're like, you know what? I don't receive that. I have a great memory. I have great intelligence. I can do these things. You know, yeah, for you, it's not a big deal, but let me tell
well,
you, in
well,
this
well,
world right here that we're in, it's
in the
a
whole in the
huge
whole in the
deal.
whole world
Okay.
is in the whole world is a big deal. But when you're married to my wife and you have my 2 sons, okay, and you're living as a unit of the 4 of us together, and you realize that I'm the dumbest of the 4 before I got sick, it's not even close. They're geniuses. they're incredible. Okay, they're like amazing. Okay,
They're amazing because they have you to raise them and they have your wife
well,
to raise them. So
whatever.
that's
Whatever.
why they're amazing. You
Anyway,
have a
so
part in that, Paul.
yes, I had a part in it. Okay, true, but
You're gonna get into your story, but just accept this because you know I won't let you go until you accept how amazing you are. Because I wouldn't have invited you here if you weren't so amazing.
well, I don't feel very amazing these days. That's part of the problem. Okay,
Stories that people tell you this all the time, Paul. You're one of those people what we call unassuming, right? Like you come in and you're like really casual, but you know all these things, right? Like you're very intelligent, you have all this education, but for you, what makes you excited about your story? And I'm excited about your story, obviously, the miracle of your what happened with the rare disease. But I'm excited because you're an individual that's no nonsense, you know? Just get to the point, get it done. Let's go. This is what you do. Basically, how you were explaining medical school. You're like, that's what everybody's supposed to do. But people don't do it, Paul. People do study. Some people don't do those things. They give up. They feel it's too hard. They give up because of the mental aptitude to get into medical school is extremely difficult, you know? And you did that after all that stuff. We don't even know how you resolved to believe the person that changed your life and just go on the pathway of getting good grades, becoming the 16th in your school, graduating high school. It is a big deal. 1,600 people, that's a lot of people to choose from, you know?
it's a lot of people.
And, you know, it's amazing. So don't ever in your heart feel like, because my wife is amazing, I'm not amazing. You're amazing. She wouldn't have talked to you if you weren't somewhat
Well,
amazing. She had to get to know you.
that's kind of what I think. I said I must have been had something on the ball because she wouldn't have married me. Okay,
Right.
that's
You know,
you know,
you must have did something right, you know?
right. Right, I did something right. Okay,
Illustrated model in your house.
right.
And
But again, um, again, the first time I saw her, I'm
mm-hmm.
presenting this case on Mass General, and I see the back of her head,
We're
and
back in the story, guys, just in case you don't know.
okay, we're back to the story. Is July 1st, 1978, and I see the back of her head and it's blonde hair, and I remember thinking, okay, the width of her shoulders isn't wide, and then she turned around and I saw her face, and I stopped. I said to myself, oh my God, this is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hales in my right ear, the attending, says, listen, you want to tell me how this patient got on the ventilator? You know, that's what we're here for. We're pulmonary.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thought was pulmonary. Who cares about pulmonary? Look at this woman. And
Mm-hmm.
the point is, I'm shy. I'm very shy. I'm not a ladies' man. And
You're not a lady man.
no, just the opposite. And so I made sure that I saw her leaving the hospital and coming out of the hospital and going because she lived a couple of blocks from Mass General and I lived a couple of blocks further from her. So I'd see her leaving the hospital and make sure that she didn't have a wedding ring or an engagement ring on.
This
Okay.
is the plan, guys. This is how he
Okay.
found
Okay.
it.
So anyway, eventually I asked her out, and we're at a nice restaurant having dinner, and in walks another doctor. Of course, I don't know his name. He's from the pulmonary unit, also where I worked. And the next day, he comes over to me and says, "How did you get her to go out with you?" And I said, "Well, the usual way. I didn't kidnap her. I asked her out, and she said, yes, that's how this usually works." And then he tells me, "I've been
Right.
asking," and he considered himself a ladies' man. Okay.
Yeah.
And then he says to me, "Well, I've been asking her out multiple times, but she's engaged to this cardiology fellow. Didn't you see the huge engagement ring on? Okay, it's like
Yeah.
$20,000, $30,000 in 1978. It'd be worth like a couple $100,000 now." And I looked for it, okay, and I looked for it for weeks, and I never saw it. So
Wow.
clearly God was helping. God was in this, okay.
He
So I didn't
is.
see it,
He
okay.
is.
This was like destiny, okay.
It
And
was.
so we didn't, we got married, and well, first of all, I asked her to marry me uh, after going out for a couple of years, okay. And she said, "Well, I'll marry you, but only if you get baptized." And I said, "Look, you don't, I don't believe in God. How's that going to work?" And she said, "Well, we baptize infants. Okay, nobody's going to ask anything." So I got baptized November 4th, 1981, thinking, okay, somebody put some water on my head. I don't believe in any of this stuff, but I get to marry the woman of my dreams. It's a deal of the century. Then we got married in January of 1982, but we really didn't have time for a honeymoon. So we scheduled a 6-week tour through
Wow.
Eastern Europe in October. And that's where the book begins. Okay, it's a real
Wow.
life story. Okay. And in the book, she's not there in the beginning, but obviously not taking a vacation without her.
Right.
And the true part of the story is it's
Not that we recommend getting baptized without knowing Jesus, but
right.
go.
But anyway, so it's now October 13th, 1982. And it's the same day, October 13th, 1917, when Our Lady of Fatima told the three shepherd children to go and get the Pope in unison with the bishops to consecrate Russia. Okay, and that's a large part of the book. In the book, my character is supposed to get this done, and in real life, I think I'm supposed to get this done. Okay, so it's October 13th, and we're on a train in Germany, of all places. Okay,
Mhm.
and it's a crowded train. I'm standing in the aisle, my wife's in front of me, and about 10, 15 feet in front of her is this crazy man with a knife. And people are screaming at him in German. And suddenly he bolts down the aisle towards my wife. And, a normal reaction would be, hey, I'll jump out of the way. She sees this, she'll jump out of the way. She could have been a professional skier. She's athletic too. She's like perfect. Okay?
Yeah.
But that's not what I did. I grabbed her by the shoulders and threw her over the lap of somebody else. Okay. And then I put my weight on her so she couldn't get up. So there's no way this guy could reach her. The problem is I'm still in the aisle. Okay. And I'm leaning over. My whole right side is open. And this guy had to move out of the way not to stab me. Okay. So he
Wow.
runs into the next, car. The emergency is over. I let her up, and she doesn't even say thank you. Okay, this is Saint Mary Beth. Okay, this is if you carried her groceries from the store to the car, she'd say thank you. This I risk my life. She doesn't say thank you. And for years, I pray to God, explain this to me. Like this makes no sense. Okay,
Mhm.
and then it suddenly made sense. It was wiped out of my memory by the evil one. And it made sense because I'm
Mhm.
driving to work. It's March 25th, the Feast of the Annunciation, 2019. I'm driving to work, see patients in the office. Suddenly, I don't know how to drive the car or use a cell phone. So I stopped. And fortunately, a policeman came over and grabbed my wife and called her from home. And I recognized her, but about 95% of my memory was wiped out, my long-term memory, and all of my short-term memory was wiped out. And I was a
Oh
moron.
wait, did we skip something? I feel like we skipped something. Okay, so you and your wife, y'all end up getting engaged to being married, right? You said that.
And we're married, right?
Now, and then what happened? What happened before you went to Tears Church? Because I don't know if we got to that point yet.
Well, we're getting to that point. Okay, we're
Oh, we're not there yet. Oh, okay, I thought
yeah,
I missed
this
it.
is two
Oh
days
wow.
beforehand.
Okay,
Okay, this is
okay.
October 13th, 1982. The thing on the train,
Oh,
crazy
okay,
guy. Okay,
okay.
and then we're still in Germany. Okay, and now we're on a bus to see Neuschwanstein, which is this beautiful castle that Ludwig II built in the 1800s. It's gorgeous. It's the castle that Walt Disney used in all of his movies and TV shows as a model. Okay, and we're on this bus to see that, and suddenly the bus stops in the middle of nowhere at a coffee shop. They obviously paid the bus company to stop there. So
Right.
everybody in the bus, including my wife, goes in the coffee shop to eat something, drink something, and use the restroom, except for me. I didn't have to do any of those things. And across the street is this church. Okay.
Mhm.
And I didn't believe in God, but sometimes they're nice to look at, and I got nothing else to do. And the
Mhm.
story was
Very
there was
nice to look at. Good to know.
well, the story is there was this stick figure of Jesus being scourged that they used to use in the Good Friday procession. But everyone agreed it was ugly, so they tossed it in a barn for a couple of decades until somebody realized there were actual tears from this thing coming from the eyes of Jesus. So they
Wow.
put that in the altar and built this church.
Amen. Hallelujah.
And the name of the church is Tears Church, or in German, Wieskirche. Okay. So I don't know the story of this. All I know is I walk in there and the walls and the ceilings are gorgeous. And it's a Catholic church because the stations are across in the walls. But your eye is drawn to this ugly thing near the altar. So I'm sitting there, there's nobody else in the church, and I'm looking at this ugly thing. And then I get this message. I don't hear anything. It's like, is this like I'm talking to you, okay? You
Mhm.
hear my words, and then your
Right.
brain is interpreting what I'm saying to understand.
Right. Mhm.
This is like it's directly in my brain. I don't hear any words. And the message was, I love you, your sins are forgiven. Suddenly I believed in God. Okay, and I'm all excited. I'm happy. I'm thrilled. It's amazing. Okay,
And you know what I wanted to say on that because well, when the Lord spoke to me for the first time, I was walking from you at UTSA. I was a chemistry degree major. And I was walking towards one of my friends, and I was really depressed, almost suicidal that day. And the Lord spoke to me in my heart, kind of like in my heart. And I was like, I know it's not me because I didn't want to talk to anyone because I was the kind of depressed that I couldn't fake it. So I was like, I don't want to. cry in front of someone, I want to cry at my house. I'd rather cry at my house. And I saw him across the way. And this is how the Lord got my attention. I saw him across the way and he actually waved at me. So he already saw me, my friend. And I'm like, this is awkward because now he saw me, you know? So I can't ignore him and go to my bus shuttle to my apartment. And the Lord spoke to me and he said, be nice, go say hi. And I had never heard the voice of God that like demanding before. And I was like, I guess I gotta go and say hi to this guy. And I didn't know what his belief was, my friend, because he was like me and just hanging out in college. We would always meet, but he was kind to me. He was a few gentlemen in college, the few, okay, in college. And I didn't know what he was about to tell me when I went to go see him, but God knew. And I went over there.
So what did he say? What did he say?
I'm about I love the suspense. No. I walk over there and he's like, talking to me casually, saying, hey, how are you? And I notice his outfits. I notice he's dressed up and he's never dressed up at college. He just wear casual clothes. He's wearing like a suit. And I'm like, what do you do now? Like, what do you do now? Why are you wearing a suit? And he's like, well, the Lord saved my life and changed my whole life. And I got this job and I've been blessed and the Lord's been doing things. I was turned off. I was so angry because I was like, I've been going to church too, and I've been doing this too. And then I was just like offended. And he's talking to me about his testimony. And he's like, I understand how you feel, blah, blah, blah. He's kind of going into it. I don't remember the full thing he said, but he just kept telling me, I have changed because of God. I have changed because of the Lord. But I didn't understand that he was trained in the things of the Spirit. He was trained on how to heal, on how to hear the voice of God, on how to prophesy, and how to pray in tongues, different things. So he was actually already coming from an encounter with God, kind of like coming down from an encounter. So when he met me, the Holy Spirit was all over him. And the way I know this is because while he was sharing his testimony, I heard in my spirit, I want a relationship with God. I want a relationship with God. And these were not my words, it was coming from the Holy Spirit. So when I told him this, I stopped him talking. I stopped him from talking. I said, I want a relationship with him. And I like screamed it. I can watch this. And he's like, okay, it's like the easiest evangelism in the world.
Well, wow.
So when you say that a story, it just reminds me of that story because I know when God speaks, it's hard to describe it to people how he speaks, but there's the internal voice, there's the audible voice of God, and then there's visions and dreams that God uses to speak to us, just like in the book of Daniel and different books that you know of. You are very well read in the Word. He has some amazing this depictions of God's word in his book. If you read it, you can tell he's really been studying God's word as well.
One of the great stories is Samuel. Okay, his mother is barren and prays.
Yes.
And he's told, the prophet Samuel is told to find the first, David. Okay,
Yeah.
find David. Okay, so he goes to David's father's, Jesse, and seven sons are paraded in front of him, and each one is more, amazing than the next.
Right.
And each time the Lord says, no, it's not him. And so at the end of this, he asks, do you have another son? He says, oh, yeah, the youngest who's in the fields of the lambs or whatever. And it's David, and that's it. That's the guy. He's the one to be supposed to know him.
I love the story.
But anyway, so here I am. I'm at Mass General, and it's the first day on the wards, and I just met the attending, and we're now at the ICU. And he's a very complicated patient there on a ventilator, and things coming out of everywhere. And I got the whole thing memorized. And Dr. Hales is on my right.
Wait, we were at Tears Church though. That's where we ended up.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we were at Tears Church. So you got to go back. You got to go back to your encounter and then go from there.
Okay, so I walk into Tears Church, and there's nobody there, and I sit down and I'm looking at this ugly thing of Jesus being scourged, which is at the altar now. Okay. The rest of the church looks gorgeous. Okay. But your eye is drawn to this ugly thing. It looks out of place.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, and then suddenly I get um, this thought that somebody's talking to me. Okay. But I don't hear a voice. It's like right into my brain. And it just was, I love you. Your sins are forgiven. And suddenly I
Mm.
believe in God. Okay.
Amen.
And so,
Powerful prophetic, right? The
right. And
prophetic.
I'm all excited. Okay. Because this is amazing. And since then I've kind of thought, well, maybe that means I'm going to go to heaven because the only way you get to heaven is if you're forgiven. Okay, the grace of God. So hopefully that's going to happen. And so I'm all excited, and I tell my wife this,
Yes. And
and
you the believer?
you know, and get this part. Okay, we're in jeans and sneakers and backpacks, and our plan was to sleep on the train um, to Vienna that night and thereby not have to pay for a hotel room. So as we're checking out, I say to my wife, "Hey, we have a Euro pass, and all we have a ticket to a specific train. Let's eat here and celebrate, and we'll get another train." And so I asked the clerk as we're checking out, "What's one of the nicest places to eat around here?" We're in Munich. Okay, in Munich, Germany is where the Nazi Party started. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
and the other thing
In
is
the
my
story
birthday.
guide. You
Yeah,
gotta read.
my birthday is the same birthday as Adolf Hitler. Yeah, we share the same birthday. Okay, right? You can't make this stuff up. So anyway, so he says probably the restaurant at the Four Seasons Hotel is one of the nicest. So I said, "Oh, let's go there." He says, "You can't get in there." He said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You have sneakers and jeans and backpacks, and you need a suit, you need a gown. Okay, you'll never get in there. Plus, it's a small restaurant. It's Friday night. October 15th, 1982 is a Friday. You need a reservation." So I remember thinking, of course we're going to get in there. I mean, the creator of the universe just communicated with me, and I want to celebrate. He'll take care of this. So,
Amen.
so we run over there, and there's a doorman dressed to the nines. I ask him where the restaurant is, and he looks at us and says, "Look, let me take your backpacks from you. I'll give it to you on your way out. Like, we don't allow people dressed like you with backpacks in our lobby, let alone eat here." So then I go upstairs and on the second floor, and the maitre d's in a tuxedo, all the waiters are in tuxedos, piano players in a tuxedo. So the guests are in gowns and suits, and there I am with my wife in jeans and sneakers. And he says, "What's your name?" And I give him my name. And there's one empty table with a reserve sign on it. And then he takes it off and we eat there. And my wife said she saw our last name on the reserve sign. I didn't see that part. But anyway, we're having the meal of our life.
Wow.
And
That was
and
set
and,
up by Holy Spirit. I
and the piano player is playing this song, okay? And I
mean,
asked the waiter, "Do you know this song?" He says, "Yeah, it's called A Man Like You and Me." And the lyrics go, "It doesn't matter if you're rich and powerful, if you're a king, we're all slaves to our fate. We're all equal in this world. We all have a fate, and we're all slaves to it, whether you're a beggar or a king." Okay, and the book is really about the intersection between fate and free will. That's what the book is really about. Okay, so it's played out. For instance, okay, so I had this great experience with the blonde teacher the first time wasn't being hit or abused. Okay, and now suddenly uh, meeting my wife for the first time who's blonde. Okay, and so I'm presenting the case. I'm looking straight ahead, and the first thing I see is her blonde hair, the back of her head, and I'm presenting from memory, and I'm going on, and I'm thinking, okay. Then she turns around and I see her face, and I stop. I say to myself, "Oh my God, this is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. What is this doing here?"
wow.
Okay, and Dr. Hale, this happened yesterday. It was July 1st, 1978. Dr. Hale says, "Listen, you want to tell me how this patient got on the ventilator? We're pulmonary. That's what we're here for." And the next thought was pulmonary. Who cares about pulmonary? Look at this woman. Okay, so again, eventually I asked
Amazing.
her out. I didn't see her engagement ring somehow. I missed that.
And she
And
still let you talk to her.
right, right. And then we got, eventually we got married, and this trip was in October 1982. We were married in January 1982. There wasn't really time for a honeymoon, so we scheduled a 6-week trip of the Uriel Pass throughout Western Europe. And again, all these miracles started in Germany, of all places.
I
And I
know.
just told you that. Okay, then the next day we're in Vienna. Okay, we slept
More
on the train.
supernatural adventure. Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so this is now October 16th, 1982. And this is even more amazing. Okay. We're in Vienna, and it's now evening, and we're starving, so check into a hotel. And I found another restaurant near where St. Stephen's Cathedral is, because you can see that there's a law in Vienna, you can't have a building higher than that steeple of St. Stephen's Cathedral. So you stop there, and there's a restaurant near there, okay? And it's a regular wooden door with a glass, wooden frame glass door, and it's supposed to be on the second floor again, okay? And there's a little light coming from there, and we walk in, and clearly it's closed. And so I turn around to leave, and now I can't open the door. We're trapped in this hallway, okay? Now I'm a pony fellow who grew up in New York City and went to Mass General, Harvard, and there's a law in every Western country since 1921. What happened in 1921? There was a fire in the Coconut Grove nightclub in Manhattan, and the people were burned alive. They couldn't get out. So there's a law. If the place is closed, nobody's there, you can lock it. But once somebody can open the door, you can't lock them in.
Right.
In every Western country. And I can't open the door, okay?
Wow.
And then I turn around to see where the restaurant is again, and I see a Christmas tree for about 5 seconds, that disappears. And I see an Easter candle for about 5 seconds, disappears. And then I see the face of Jesus. And I'm petrified. I think I'm going to die. Okay?
Amen.
So I turn around and I try to get out the door, and I can't get out of the door, okay? And again, the night before at the Four Seasons restaurant, my wife wrote a list of things. One of which was St. Bridget of Sweden, okay? And the other was Paul Stephen, and the other was four founders and Marcus and whatever. Didn't make any sense. Anyway, eventually, a lady comes with blonde hair and opens the door for us easily, and we run out with scared mice. And I got a good look at her face because I'm standing at the door, okay, when she opened, okay? And we eat at the Lucky Chinese restaurant. I don't like Chinese food, neither does my wife. But I said to her,
like Chinese food.
Well, we're going to the next restaurant.
We're
going to the next restaurant we see. I need to be, I don't know what planet we were just on, but I need to be in the real world. I need to see people, whatever. And so that's where we ate, or whatever the heck it is, okay? And it was terrifying, okay? And then the next day, I buy a book of saints. Now I'm a believer, okay? I believe in God, okay? So I buy this book of saints, okay? And I look to July 23rd, which is the feast day of St. Bridget of Sweden. Yeah. And there is the picture of the lady who opened the door for me the day before, okay? So she may have been born in 1400 and died in 1473, but I swear to God, I saw her on October 16th, 1982, okay?
Wow.
So that's why I believe, okay? And
she had an open eye vision of a woman that was born in the 1400s.
Right. And she's the one who comes
you out
the door for me.
Wow, like angelic.
Yeah. So, and then like I was basically forever changed. That was it. Everything was fine, okay, until March 25th, the feast day of the Annunciation, 2019. Right. I'm a physician. I'm driving to work to see patients in the office.
We're fast forwarding, guys, just so you know. This after here church.
Okay, and this is way after that. We have kids and everything, okay, and it's now 2019. That was 1982, okay. So suddenly I don't know how to drive the car or use a cell phone, and I'm one of fewer than 500 people in history who get this god-awful disease, Hashimoto Encephalitis. So I get admitted to the hospital. The MRI in my brain lit up like a Christmas tree.
That's horrible.
And it's so rare that there's no studies to say how to treat this, okay? But it's similar to a rheumatologic disease, lupus. Lupus is the only one of the rheumatologic diseases that has a cerebritis. So rheumatoid arthritis doesn't have it, scleroderma doesn't have it. So I'm seen by neurologists, I'm seen by rheumatologists, and I'm treated with chemotherapy, okay? CellSet is a chemotherapy that's used if you have, it's FDA approved if you have a liver transplant or a kidney transplant to stop you from rejecting the foreign organ, okay? But the only FDA approved dose is 500 milligrams twice a day. Yet I'm treated with 1,500 milligrams twice a day. So 3 times the FDA approved dose. I'm on IV steroids to cut down the inflammation. And I'm in the hospital from March 25th, 2019 to May 2nd, okay? And I have no long-term memory. I have about 95% of my long-term memory is gone, and I have no short-term memory. But I can recognize my wife. Okay, I knew who she was.
Wow.
And when my adult kids came to visit me, okay, they came for a week every day. And each day they came, I had no recollection that they came the day before. So each time was like a new,
Oh,
there was no short-term memory. Okay.
wow.
And basically I was a moron. And I also had a peripheral neuropathy. My fingers didn't work, my feet are numb, couldn't walk without a cane, and it was awful. Okay. I'm a moron. I don't have no memory. The only thing is I still knew the medicine for some reason. Okay. Um, I didn't know that I was on the chess team in high school. I didn't know that I played chess, okay, or any of those things, okay. And again, I'm treated with all these medicines for 2 years, and nothing changed. The parts of my brain responsible for memory were destroyed, and it was hopeless.
Wow.
Okay,
That's
and so after 2 years, the medicine was stopped because nothing had changed. And then um, on April 29th, 2022, a year after I stopped the medicines, my memory came back. I still have the
horrible.
peripheral neuropathy, but and to top it all off, the MRI in my brain is unchanged. So I still have the parts of my brain responsible for memory. I shouldn't have a memory. I shouldn't be able to talk to you and have a conversation,
Yeah, you shouldn't. Exactly.
right? Okay.
We should
Uh,
have this
but, but
interview.
my but my memory is perfect. Okay. Uh,
And
I,
I
I
want to
still
stop
I
you there because there's
still
so
have
many things.
I
I
still
want,
have the peripheral neuropathy, and I fell down a flight of stairs in my house and broke my wrist,
oh,
because the balance is off, but that's even a little bit better too. I can type fast,
yeah.
whatever.
So this is kind of like your present day, you know?
Right.
So
This is where
I'm
I
going
am.
to touch on a lot of things because I am ready to share, my response to all of this. And I'm also looking at the book as well as we're going over this. So,
One last thing before I'm looking at the book. The front of the book
Mhm.
has the definition of love from St. Paul. Uh,
I know.
1 Corinthians 13. Love is
Yes,
patient, love is kind, it always persists, it
yes,
always perseveres, okay? The back of the book, because if you don't have love in your life, you can't be happy, okay? The back
yeah.
of the book has a picture of a baseball hitter, okay?
Oh,
Baseball hitter comes to the plate trying to get a hit, okay? And more
yeah,
often than not, he makes an out. And it's kind of
yeah,
like a metaphor of us sinners, okay? We try, but we always fail and we sin every day, but we have to keep going and wait for the next
yeah.
not give up.
Very true. And you're going to continue to touch on that. And I wanted to talk about just like I was talking about the amazing voice of God when you went to Tears Church, but also the what do you call it? The post encounters. We call it the post encounters, right? And the post encounters that happened with him when he was trapped in that room, which is illegal to be trapped in that room. Um, he talked about how the Saint Bridget image showed up to him, and he found out she was born in 1400s, and it actually can resemble whenever an image like that can be sorry, an image like that is shown, it would be a vision, right? God shows us visions, and but he also sends angels just so everyone can understand that. Now, the magnitude of what he's sharing, guys, like if you read the book, right? If you're with me here and you read the very beginning of the book, it doesn't sound like someone who loves Jesus, okay?
No,
He's
it does.
very honest about where he was before God knew him. And he's like, I hate people. I don't want to hear about people. He
I
loves
don't.
loves his wife, loves his wife, but just hated everything.
Well,
And was
everything changed when I met my wife. It's kind of like that song. I don't know if you remember the song from 1955 from the Platters, "Only You and You Alone." I'm not going to sing it for you, but the lyrics are, um, "Only you can make the world seem right. Only you can make the darkness bright. Only
yeah,
you and you alone can fill me like you do and fill my heart with love for only you. Only you can make this change in me. Well, it's true, you are my destiny. When you hold my hand, I understand the magic that you do. You're my dream come true. I want
right.
only you." And one last thing. In this book, by the way, there is a mistake. Okay, that's why it's going to have a different edition. The mistake is this. Also on this trip during 1982, October, okay, we're in Rome, okay? We're visiting all the Vatican and all this other stuff, okay? I'm walking up the Spanish Steps, okay, and I look up and I see the face of Jesus. That's in there, okay? Again, there's always a match to these things, otherwise you think you're going crazy, okay?
Mhm.
But before that, I saw a vision of the Holy Family, baby Jesus and Joseph and Mary. And
Oh,
I'm going to put that back in there because number one, there's an error that was missing. But number two, it explains why. My wife and I went to Barcelona to see this sacred uh, Church of the Holy Family in Barcelona.
Um,
Okay, and that's where something really important happens. But we wouldn't have gone there if not for the fact that I saw this.
yeah.
Okay. So there's going to be a new edition that's coming up. It's being published now again, but it will be corrected.
Yeah, that's amazing. See more encounters, more things, And I wanted to touch base on how what he was like, and he said, "I don't like people, nor do I care to see any of the things they made. I have no friends, and consider the world to be a large sewer." And that's a quote from the book, but
That's the way
that's
I
why
thought.
this
And the next
encounter is
and the next
so
line and the next line is that's why it's important to be able to swim with your head out of the water.
right. Well, yeah, and he was just, and this was the state he was in. And we all know that we was rough before we knew Jesus. Okay. We was all kind of rough. Like me, I was just very selfish. Okay. I was not looking out for other people and different things. So when God had saved him and he accepted love, it transformed his mindset. It transformed his heart to be able to accept Christ and this message. And it's like God was like, even in that message, the Lord is saying, I saw all of it. I saw everything. And I
Yeah,
still forgive you. And I still love you. And I still want to use you. And I still care for you. And that was enough. And God knows what is enough. He knows what will be enough to have us completely forgive. He didn't have to go on this archaeological journey to prove the death of Christ, like the
right.
death and resurrection of Christ, like in case for Christ, because he was also an atheist turned believer. So I kind of see you guys almost like the same, genius of that. But I was just thinking to myself, whatever path brings us to Christ is equally important, because for him it's this amazing tears church, uh, this I don't know how to what is it called again?
Tears Church, Wieskirche. It's
The thing you were looking at. You said you had
oh,
an image with
is this
tears
ugly
coming out.
thing of Jesus being scourged. It's
Oh,
like
so
an
was
icon.
it a picture or was it a?
It's a real thing. It's like it's like a carving, a wooden carving.
Oh,
Jesus
okay.
being
See, I didn't
scourged
know that.
that
Okay, I didn't know that.
they used to use in a Good Friday procession. They used to carry it.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna look it up too.
Right.
It's
Well,
a
you know,
wooden carving.
it's there.
That is so
You know,
cool. That is so cool. So the wooden carving is what caught his eye, because and even they were like, oh, they don't want to put it anywhere, but they recognize the meaning. And God is all about the meaning of the thing. See, God doesn't always speak in plain language. He would speak in parables. He would different things. He would want you to find the meaning in it. And those words weren't simple. The weight of I forgive you and I love you was the weight of all the pain he went through, you know, that he needed that love, because constantly, if you listen to his biography, what he was sharing, there were people not showing that kind of love to him often in his story. So he felt he had reason to not love people and different things. So when he met his wife and it changed everything, then eventually he was able to accept love, maybe for the first time. But then after that, he's accepted the love of Jesus Christ. I mean, this is after he was baptized. Didn't know that he would become a Christian after he was baptized. But even in this city, in this Germany, this place where it was horrible for his mom and different things, he goes and he finds love there. He finds a way to celebrate his faith. He finds a way to, continue on in these encounters. The Lord continues to speak to him and show him he is with him. He is with him all the way to the today. And he is able to remember things now after being contracting this disease that only 5 people have, and there's no cure for it. And they gave him 3 times the dose of the radiation therapy, chemotherapy,
chemotherapy. Yeah.
and it was way beyond the approved dosage. And part of the reason why he was healed was because he was off of it, because they said after 2 years it doesn't work, so we're just going to take you off of it. And then the memory starts to come back, and he always had a great immune system. So this was already hard for him, and he was like, man, I was basically a moron. I didn't know anything. And
Well,
it's like, but it's like, no, because your
one,
parents
one
filled
last,
with
one last,
loving.
one last facet of the story. Okay, so again, when I got sick, I lost my memory and I lost my immune system, the two wonderful things that I had. Okay, and then recently, like about a year or so, like I live in this house. I don't go near people. I don't want to get sick, whatever that is, okay? Because I've been on this chemotherapy and everything else. So this past fall, my nephew uh, goes to a college nearby, and he plays football. Of course, I wanted to play football, so in my mind, I said, well, I really would like to go to this, but I can't sit in the crowd and get COVID again. I got COVID, by the way. I went to get a haircut 2 years ago. My
Oh,
wife took me. Okay, she was in the waiting room, the same room that I'm in. She didn't get COVID. I did. Okay, so I'm terrified that his immune system is destroyed. So anyway, so I really wanted to go to this football game, but I was afraid. And of course, my wife says, get yourself in the car. We're going. But okay,
mhm.
and usually when I do what she says, things work out. So I'm there, okay, and it's pouring rain, and I'm freezing, and I'm sitting there for 3 hours, soaked and freezing, okay, and I'm the only one in the group that didn't have anything warm to eat or drink, okay, and then I get home, and there's not a sniffle, not a sore throat, not an earache, nothing. It's like this immune system is back.
Wow.
Okay, it's like, okay, everything's being restored. Okay, this
Yeah,
is unbelievable. Okay,
this is amazing. And
right.
that's why I love this testimony so much because God is still doing things. God is still
He's,
encountering him and doing things for him because he loves all of us and he loves him. And it's a testament to everyone out there who didn't believe, everyone out there who was like, I'm nervous, I'm confused, I have questions, I don't believe in encounters and different things. You just heard it here. And he's like a medical doctor. So he's very, very objective. So it's no reason for him to be like, I'm just making this up. And like there's no reason for that. And he's not like a super emotional person, like I am, right? I'm just like all over the place. But he's like super he's super impacted by what God has done, and that's why he shared the story in this book. And I support anyone out there that has a story like this. If you want to be on the show and you want to share the story, please do, make sure you let me know. But this is an amazing way for him to share his faith with everyone and say, listen, this is how I found the Lord. And I have always shared this that the only reason why I'm a business owner is because God literally told me to be one. And
Right.
I would not want to do it. Trust me, I didn't want to be one. It was the last thing I wanted to be because I was like thinking that business was like icky or whatever. But I was actually shocked by how much of a skill set I had in it. And I was able to start businesses at a younger age and just do different things and start organizations. But it was all God. I never wanted to lead anything until the Lord came into my life. Like, I never wanted to lead a business. I never wanted to lead an organization. The year I found Christ and like really submitted to Christ was the year I started an organization called Testimonial Poetry. And I had never gathered people. People just started gathering, listening to me. I'm delegating all of a sudden, all these things. I wrote my first blog. I wrote my first testimony blog all over the place, telling everyone my testimony, a vulgar testimony, not no like easy testimony, like a sensual testimony. And I'm sharing with the whole world. So and I end up taking it down because I want to talk about other things. But I was like, oh, I just heard the words, you're a testifier in the spirit. And I was like, okay, whatever that means. I probably should talk to leadership, maybe. But I was just like, all these things and it went viral, different things. But God was like, I'm going to use your story. I'm going to use your story. And I didn't have I didn't have like so much trauma in my life, but I did have a lot of identity issues in my life, accepting who I am as a Nigerian, accepting myself as beautiful, trusting that I'll find someone, different things like those kind of issues, not knowing my purpose. I told you I was a chemistry degree major, right? That probably was like, wait, what? Like that's a whole story in of itself. Why I was a chemistry degree major. If anyone, your parents want the best for you. That's my disclaimer. Your parents want the best for you. So
Right.
they knew I wasn't a creative kid, okay? They knew, the whole house knew from 9 years old that I wanted to be a dancer, fashion designer, and a writer. Three things, okay? That's all I would talk about. Till high school, senior year. This is not new information, okay? So they asked me, so what do you want to do for college? And and I'll be very quick. What do you want to do for college? And I'm like, I want to be a writer. They're like, what? And they're like, no, 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 no. And my parents are Nigerian. So it's more like, no, 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 you will not do that. You will not do that. So they're looking at me like, you better figure something out medical because you're black and we don't make money doing whatever it is that you do, right? They don't know that, right? They don't know that stuff yet, right? And I don't know either, right? Because I'm just like creative. I'm thinking this is cool. I'm gonna write. They're like, no, and I'm like, oh.
Well,
So
they must have thought you were pretty smart because you can't be dumb and be a chemistry major, okay?
that
You
that's
know,
the funny
try
part, though.
doing biochemistry and being in the lab there, okay, and see how you do, okay?
Exactly. And I'm definitely gonna touch on that because when they told me that they won't let me do the writing thing, I applied to a college and I was accepted into this college. And they didn't know I applied to do creative writing. But it was Prescott College. And they were like so excited that I got accepted, but it was in Arizona. And they're like, you're not
Uh,
going to
yeah, so
Arizona
there you
in
go.
Kese. We're not paying for that. And I'm like,
Right.
I'm all freaking out. So I don't get in. And I declined the offer, right? I declined the offer. It wasn't a full ride scholarship. So they would have to pay for it. And they would have been real angry if they found out it was creative writing. I'd be like, dude, man. And they'd be like, so eventually me and my parents come to a truce, a truce. And I finally take my SATs and they're like, I was like, I'll do pharmacy. It's 6 years. I'll be out in no time. I'll do pharmacy, get out of my hair. I'll do it. So I end up going to become a pharmacist. And this is when the Lord encountered me and he changed my profession. I have to give him the credit for that. But I was already on my pathway to changing because I was doing all these other things. But he was like, I never called you to that. One day while I was on the road, my crazy encounter, okay, I was driving and my sister and I was in my senior year, my junior year in college, and my sister was like, you need something to do because you're about to graduate. And I was like, I agree. I need to do something. And I couldn't get into pharmacy because I didn't have the grades I needed. So we were gonna do psychology, be a psychologist. And after this, I had already found Jesus. Okay. So I was like, okay, gonna do that. So I'm driving home from Houston to San Antonio because UTSA is in San Antonio. So I'm driving from Houston after talking to my sister, and I'm gonna become a psychologist. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna be a psychiatrist, make 150,000. That's what I'm gonna do. And the Lord encounters me on the road, and He says, "Are they your God, or am I your God?" And I was like,
Whoa.
driving,
Whoa.
okay? I'm driving and God is talking to me in loud voice and I'm driving and I'm scared out of my mind, thinking I'm gonna crash. I'm like, Lord, okay, yes, Lord, oh, all right. He's like, they're not your God, I'm your God, and da da da, and you're not doing da da da. And I go and I keep this to myself because I'm like, I'm a lunatic. I'm a lunatic. I'm certifiable. I'm not telling anyone about this conversation, but the Lord knows what happened. But God obviously spoke to other people. Because I went to church that day and I was like hanging out with my friend, and my friend was like, "Hey," he was like, "What happened when you went to go visit?" I was like, "Well, my sister and I'm gonna be a psychiatrist. I'm gonna go to school for psychiatry after my undergrad." And he was like, "Seek the Lord." He just looked at me and was like, "Seek the Lord." I was like, "What?"
Whoa.
I
Whoa.
came back to him thinking that he was like just being crazy. And I was like, bye. And he was like, make sure you seek the Lord. And I was like, okay. So that was a sign for me to not go into that degree and not do that. And all the different things that I've gotten to do was on the basis of what God had shown me. And mind you, God wasn't like able to tell me what I was going to do at graduation. So I scared my mom. I scared her and I told her, Mommy, she was like, what are you going to do? We graduated college. What are you going to do? Because I graduated my chemistry degree because I was like, well, I'm already done. I have one semester left. Might as well just finish. So she's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, my siblings, they're not shocked. So they're like hearing me every single Sunday, every Friday, talk about Jesus and come home, talk about Jesus. They're like, we know, mommy. Like, you can't be that shocked. She's always talking about God, different things, all kinds of stuff. It's not that shocking. I was like, I don't think like big money. Oh, it's funny now, all these different
But it is shocking when you get an encounter. Okay, it is shocking. Okay, I don't care what how religious you are. When it happens, and again, in the book and in real life, you always need a match. Like I always need something that's very similar, so that I know I'm not crazy.
Yeah, and it's true because the Lord did end up taking me through a school. He ended up taking me through leadership internships. People did come alongside of me and teach me how to be a leader, teach me business, different things. So it wasn't like I was gonna just jump in there and just run a church because that wasn't necessarily what he wanted me to do. And it was funny because I told everyone this, right? But like I said, God didn't bring me the clarity yet that I was going to do that. I just saw everyone doing that. So whenever I did end up telling them, I'm actually going to do this instead, they were like, well, that makes more sense. Like you doing creative stuff, that makes more sense. But at that point in time, after being inspired by God and seeing all these people work in the church, I thought I had to plan a church in order to support the things of the kingdom. And I didn't have to. I could be a business owner and still be a minister in my church and still be a prophet and still do those things. But I didn't have that understanding until now. And when I was like, okay, well, I guess I can still be a Christian business owner and different things. And I didn't even know that was a thing back then. Back then, I didn't know that. So I was like, wow, you're making money doing things that you're good at creatively for God. So it's just like amazing to hear these stories because like I was saying beforehand, our struggles, the things that we've overcome, and how he overcame his education issues and different things, and he became a doctor, and now he wrote this book to give God the glory. I just wanted to give God the glory with this testimony. Like I know the title of this episode isn't really titled anything, but I wanted to title it as to be God be the glory, because He did all of these things, and I might name it Supernatural Adventure. I don't know. Supernatural Adventure because it was an adventure for you and it wasn't something that just randomly happened. And I found this book at a great price, guys. So if you want to get the book, it's on Barnes and Noble. You're on Amazon. You're on
Yes.
Amazon, and you're also on. You're in a bookstore, right? In the bookstore.
Yeah, I'm in the bookstores. Also, my website is http://pauljoelbook.com/. And you can read all about, what the book is about there also. If you're not sure if you want to buy it, you can look at it right there. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Give you like an
You said it.
excerpt.
Is it? It's www.pauljoel.com.
No, it's http colon //
Mm-hmm.
pauljoelbook.com/. And if you look
Okay.
on that, you can see it tells you a lot about the book. Um,
PaulJoelBook.com.
right,
Okay. I also never wrote.
with the forward slashes, http colon // pauljoelbook.com/. And it pops up right there. It'll tell you, I don't know if you can order it on that website, but it'll tell you a lot about the book. The other thing is this, on
Mm-hmm.
that website, I have the Amazon book review by Stacy Cellini.
Yeah.
And it's a tremendous review. And I'm looking at this thing, okay, and I'm saying to myself, she's a better writer than I'll ever be, okay? And it turns
You
out
wrote a lot of books, I'm
she's the author of
assuming.
20 novels, right? Okay, so she doesn't just do reviews, okay? This is just like
Yes,
something she does on its own. But
exactly. I,
she got every point of the book, like every
yeah.
aspect of it is in her review.
Wow. And it's amazing because, he's done other podcasts, guys. I'm not the only one. I'm like the side chick. I'm just like, I was just playing. But no, he's done other podcasts on this story as well. So just support this. I think it's an amazing story. I think it's great because anytime you do something for God, it's brave. It's brave to share the testimony because sometimes people think we're crazy as believers. So it's like it's brave to share it nowadays. People aren't talking about the power of God like that as they used to. And
But I
it's
think
amazing
I
that
think when I get a sign, there's got to be some matching thing because I think I am crazy. And again, I'm not comparing myself to the Blessed Virgin Mary, but she has the Annunciation, and during the Annunciation, she's also told, "Hey, your cousin Elizabeth, who wasn't supposed to have children anymore, is 6 months pregnant." So she goes to
yeah,
visit. That's the visitation. She goes to visit. As soon as she walks in, she hears Elizabeth saying, "How is it that the mother of my Lord came to visit me?"
yes, I love
Yeah,
that
so it's
story.
kind of like, again,
Luke.
you're getting some kind of, information from God, and it's hard to believe.
Mhm.
She's been told you're going to have Jesus, and she says, "Well, how is that possible? I have nothing to do with that." And
Yeah.
then she's told the Holy Spirit will, come upon you and whatever. And so it's hard. How do you believe that? Later on, 4 months later, you're pregnant, and you say to yourself, "How did this happen again?" Like it's hard to believe. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing her. It's not a question of a lack of belief. It's just as a human being, we need signs to say, "Hey, this really happened the way
Yeah.
it happened to me." Okay, this is what happened. Okay, and there's got to be a sign, and there's got to be a matching sign so that you don't question
Okay.
this later on.
Okay, I got the link on there. I was trying to make sure it was on there. So everyone can get the link. The link to the book is right there. I got mine at Barnes and Nobles. The ebook, it was like $5. Not even hard, guys. And then on top of that, you guys make sure you tune in to the audio because this is going to be audio as well on CEO in the Making podcast. There's going to be snippets of like reminders, reels of the same podcast interview. So you guys will be able to see that, and I will definitely hope that you listen to this, and I hope it inspires your faith. I hope it helps you see a candid, very candid look at someone going from atheism to believing in God. And he believed by the word he heard. The word, the Lord encountered him like Paul on the Damascus, just running, riding down there, about to beat up some Christians. And then all of a sudden, Jesus appears, and Jesus appeared to him multiple times, and then Jesus appeared to Paul one time, and it was enough. It was like, look, enough of this. I'm just no more Pharisee life. I'm gonna go follow the believers. I'm doing what they're doing. They weren't very happy about it. I wouldn't have been. Paul, you just killed my sister, but sure, let's hang out. Like,
Right.
let's hang out, Paul, I guess. But no, it's like it was softening of the hearts of the believers at that time to even work with Paul. But Paul did so much of explaining and teaching in the word of God. We have to deal with him. We have to deal
One,
with
one, one last point, okay, and this is a bit of heresy, okay? We're all been taught that what's in the Bible is absolutely correct, okay? There's no errors in the Bible, okay? I was taught that.
inerrant. That's what I believe.
I was taught about the Old Testament like that in yeshiva, and yet yesterday, if you went to mass, okay, and at Catholic mass, they would have the reading of John 21, uh, 15 to 19, okay? And there's a mistake there, okay? It's the part of the Bible where Peter is being proclaimed like the Pope, okay, like the leader of the pack, okay? And Jesus is asking him 3 times, "Do you love me?" And each time, Simon, son of Jonah, "Do you love me?" And uh, Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And then Jesus says, "Feed my lambs, feed my sheep." Okay. However, the first question is the error. Okay. The first question is it would be perfectly fine if he 3 times it was, "Do you love me?" But the first question is not, "Do you love me?" It's, "Do you love me more than these?" Okay. The next two is, "Do
Okay.
you
Are
love
you
me?"
talking about versions or different
I'm talking about
readings?
John. I'm talking about John. Okay, the Gospel of John, 21, 14 to 19. Chapter 21, verse 14 to 19. Okay, they had breakfast, and then after breakfast, Jesus is basically anointing Peter and says, "Do you love me?" And Peter says, "You know, Lord, that I love you." And then Jesus says, "Feed my sheep." And 3 times he says that. Okay. However, the first question when you read your Bible, okay, is not, "Do you love me?" The first question is, "Do you love me more than these?" When they add the "more than these," that's the error. Okay. Why is that an error? Okay. Number one, it's an error because Jesus is not going to ask you a question that you can't answer. Okay. And Peter has no idea if he loves Jesus more than John. Okay. Or any of the other apostles. Okay, and if I had to answer the question, who loved Jesus the most, it would be John, not Peter. Okay,
Right. Well, in
when
an
Jesus,
attempt,
when
in
when
an
when,
attempt to not
when,
enter into a
when
debate
well, but when Jesus
with
is
the
being
word of God, I'd
Jesus,
have to do my own research because I can't do that here. I definitely
okay,
can't do that
but
here.
but you know, but the
But
point is
I can look that up. I mean, it's not a
yeah,
big error. It's not
no,
like
no,
a
it's not
huge
a big error,
error or
but the point is
anything. I don't think it's an error right now, so I don't agree at
okay,
this point.
all right, but
But
the point is when Jesus was being crucified, Peter was busy denying him 3 times. Okay, and at the foot of the cross was two people, the Blessed Virgin Mary and John. And from the cross, Jesus said to John, "Behold your mother," and to his
mhm.
mother, "Behold your son." So if I had to pick one person who loved Jesus the most, I'd pick John. He was the one that on the Last Supper who had his head on the chest of Jesus. Okay,
Well,
and
he's the beloved one. We know that. I mean, he's the
right, right,
beloved one.
right.
Right. So, again, we don't want to talk about the errors in the Bible right now. I just want to talk about your testimony. That's the main focus here. But, thank you for your comment on it. But again, we want to really focus on your testimony and what you said about, believing in God and things of that nature. We can talk about that another time. But what I really want to make sure the podcast ends off is a high note. We want to end off on a high note of just talking about how God has always, come through for all of us and continues to do miracles and is doing miracles today. And that's what this is really about, and it's to expose to people that if you have questions, if you have concerns about your faith, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So you have to accept his love into your heart. It is not something that just randomly happens. You have to accept it as it's being said to you. Me and Paul were graciously given an encounter with the Lord, right? But if you haven't been encountered with the Lord and you've been seeking to know the Lord, being a minister, being a woman of God, I've seen, that when people are open, more open to the reality of God visiting them, the reality of God being with them in his presence, in our vicinity. Right now, God is with us, right? As we're talking about him, as we're sharing about him, and we're giving him glory, we're continuing to talk about him. It's going to make him more present in our environment. But I'm asking you all today who are listening, do you believe? Are you willing to believe? Are you willing to surrender what you have felt as your intellect, all of the things, to now go on a quest to find the Lord, because we need the Lord in this time. I've been praying about this. I've been thinking about this, even about the interview entirely of itself. And to not bring any confusion to anyone, we know that trauma is often a reason why people don't take on the faith, or become atheists or don't believe or don't go to church at all because of the trauma. But if you take away the trauma and you look at what the Lord thinks of you, and you look at what he wants for us, you will see he has a grander purpose for us all, and obviously in Paul's life, there was a grander purpose for him after all. So it's a purpose thing that his mother lived after all the things in the Holocaust. It was purpose that he was brought to the States. It was a purpose for him even to get that disease and his memory come back so that God's power could be shown through him. Right. So all of that has a purpose. Him meeting his wife, that's a purpose as well. So I want you guys to really consider, what is my purpose in all of this? And you're not a blob. You're not just random. It's not just random when you get overcoming struggles with your education. It's not just random. It's not just, okay, I guess I got there. No, it's work and it takes time to accept your calling. So I wanted to make sure that people really see that and really are inspired by that on this note here. And that as you read the book, you're going to hear what he thought before he knew God. So just be cautious of that, but also know that now that he has his faith, his life is a completely different life. And I think that when we accept Christ, we don't always know that, but he cares about us being in good health. He cares about us being able to have finances, being able to do what we need to do in this life. And he ultimately wants to show himself. And I am a firm believer that even though we need to definitely read the Bible, we also need to know what it is to know Jesus personally. We need to be able to talk to him. We need to be able to have constant, ongoing prayer towards him, and just be praying for our nation and different things that are going on here. So this is a salvation, episode. This is a salvation episode, and I'm unashamed to say that, because in my life, in my walk, God has many times told me, do not be ashamed. Do not be ashamed of what you believe, who you follow, what you are in me, who you are in me, because I am a prophet. That's my main ministry. So whenever I hear something, I have to share that. And whenever I am advocating for the Lord, I have to share that. So it's important for us to continue on believing. And I know I'm going over time, but I just want to say thank you, Paul,
Thank
for
you
what
for having me. One
and
last point. The purpose of miracles is to increase your faith.
yes.
The purpose of miracles, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so, people who have incredible, strong faith, they don't need miracles anymore. They're already convinced.
Yeah, when you're convinced, you're convinced. And I love those people, because I know I wasn't one, but I love those people. I love hearing that. Okay, I read the scripture, I believe now. Like, or you went there and you believe. I'm like, praise God for you, because that's an ongoing faith that you will never lose, because you held to the faith. And I think Billy Graham struggled with that, because even though he had an evangelist come and he came into Christ through the evangelist preaching that day, he was while he was in the preaching circuit, Billy Graham had said he had struggles believing that the Bible was inerrant and things of that nature, because man wrote the Bible. And he was struggling, and he said one day he just went on this mountaintop and he spoke to the Lord, and he knew that the word was true. So he said, this day, before I go preach another service, he's like, I believe the Bible to be right and to be true by faith. And it just shattered all his confusion. It shattered all the things.
Right.
And he stood at that mountain and he made sure that he was no longer going to preach the word with that confusion of his scholarly friends and all that kind of stuff. He was like, I'm not worried about that. I'm concerned with the word of Jesus. I'm concerned with what he's saying. And I'm going to hold to the truth of this gospel. And it changed his ministry forever. So, go into it knowing that you're going to have questions, but also know that once you come to that conclusion that this is Jesus, this is God who has saved your life, you will never be the same. So I will end on that note. And I will say thank you, Paul, for coming
Thank you for
for a
having me.
podcast. I will send you a list if we have to break this up, because I know our
Right,
podcast kind
that's
of went
fine.
long, but that's okay. I might have to do part one, part two, or something. I don't know, but it was really good. I love talking about God, so I could talk all day. But do you have anything to sign off with?
No, no,
Anyone? Okay.
no,
You said
just
it all.
I said it all. Here's another piece
Yeah,
of.
there you go. The book.
Yeah.
You get the book. I have a book too. I just play it. I do have a book. I just play, but I will go ahead and let you go. And you have a good day, Paul. Thanks for
You too.
coming. And everybody have a good day.